worked as a security guard at a large hotel in the Las Vegas during my late 20s. It paid way better than pretty much any other job nearby that I was actually qualified for. But the most annoying part about it was the schedule and the staff. At the time, the building was having trouble with a lack of the staff to cover shifts. So my schedule would be morning, evening, or overnights all around only throughout the week. It made it really hard to even sleep sometimes. But again, I like the money. Anyways, I was working a late evening shifts this night and was at the front desk talking to my co-workers. It was around 11 and my shifts ended at 12, so we were just passing the time. In the middle of our conversation, the phone rang on the desk that was leaning on. Checking the number, it was from one of the rooms in the hotel, so I picked it up and asked how I could help them. A man spoke saying that was something going on in one of the rooms down the hall and that he was really worried about it. I asked him what he meant and he frantically responded, telling me to come up quick because he was getting really nervous. I checked the room number on the phone, then told him I would send security up as soon as possible. Of course, though, I was just referring to myself when I put the phone down or quickly explained the strange nature of the call to my coworkers, then headed to the elevators and went to the mid-level floor where the college room was located. Walking down the hallway, there was a strange sense of absolute silence. I expected to hear whatever the caller was talking about, but there was no loud noises coming from anywhere on the floor. I also kind of expected the caller to have been standing by their door, waiting for me or something, but the door was closed. I knocked on the door, loudly announcing that it was hotel security. I didn't hear any movement or sounds coming from the room at all, and after a minute of no answer, I walked down to the end of the hallway, listening intently for anything unusual, then continued back to the door, knocking again. A few moments later, though, the room behind me opened their door and an older woman asked if I was security. I said yes and asked if they knew anything about a strange noise or the caller from the room, to which they replied that they had heard loud noises traveling through the hallway a few minutes ago, but were unsure what it was. From their voice and facial expressions, they seemed really terrified. At this point, I was already starting to get really nervous, but things only got stranger. I grabbed my walkie and radioed down to the front desk, asking them to call the room again and let me know if they answered. After a little bit, they replied that nobody answered. I stood there for a moment, trying to think of what to do before radioing back down to them. I told them to check who was staying in the room. After waiting for what felt like forever, they finally got back to me saying that nobody had the room booked for tonight. Even more confused, I took out my security key card and opened the door since nobody was supposed to be there. The room looked clean and unused as far as I could tell. I searched every corner and found basically nothing. But then I walked over to the phone. I turned it over and got a serial number on it. Then I backed down to the lobby where my desk was and I checked the security records for timestamps of calls that had been made from that room. Sure enough, there was a record of an active call having been made from his room to the front desk, the one that I had answered about 15 minutes ago. Obviously, the hotel didn't record the calls or anything, so all I was able to confirm was that someone was in that vacant room without permission. This ended up becoming a bigger investigation over the coming days, as the next morning, one of the guests staying in the room on that same floor was reported missing by a family member that was staying in a separate room. The security footage of all the entrance and exits were reviewed, and the missing person was last seen leaving the hotel alone a couple hours prior to the call I had received. It's still unclear if the two incidents were connected or not, but it's definitely a really strange situation. I don't know how the caller got access to the phone or who they were, but I believe that the reason the call seemed to add up with someone getting forcefully kidnapped based on their brief description. The person behind the mystery call was never identified, and as of right now, the missing person still has not been found.